Do you ever wonder how your student fees are determined? Hi, everyone. I'm Charles Irvin.
And I'm Erin Gibbs. Welcome back to this week's resolution.
The podcast where we take a look behind the scenes at all things student, government, and politics at Penn State. Today, we are joined by the chair of the Student Fee Board, Najee Rodriguez, to talk about how your student fees are determined at Penn State.
So, Najee, would you like to introduce yourself and explain what you do on the Student Fee Board?
Well, thank you two so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm really excited to be able to explain the student-initiated fee and how that works with everyone. My name is Najee Rodriguez, and I am currently serving as the chair of the University Park Fee Board. Essentially, in that role, what I do is I help guide the board throughout the budget cycle, in which the board makes the ultimate decisions to fund critical student services, and other programming events and services that ultimately enhance the student experience. That means ensuring that board meetings are scheduled, ensuring that voting and appropriate materials are documented to the board and of course voted on by the board. And we ultimately ensure with leadership that we are guiding the organization in collaboration with student affairs to ultimately produce a final student-initiated fee at the end of the year that reflects all of our funding and budgetary priorities.
Awesome. Talking more about that student fee specifically, is there a certain type of financing that comes across the board that needs to be reviewed fairly often?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think that really bleeds into the purpose and ultimate objective of the board, which is, of course, to support not only our values, but every student at University Park and, of course, the funds that they contribute to better their experience and provide support for them. We have a few categories like basic needs, environmental sustainability, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and recreation and entertainment. And within those categories, we do fund the units like the Basic Needs Support Center, which provides basic needs support for students. We help fund the Gender Equity Center. We fund all of campus recreation's employees, student staff members.
Wow.
So that's why the campus recreation is able to operate for the hours that it does, because students are able to be there and we are paying students to support other students, which is a really good deal in my opinion. And we, of course, provide any additional support that might be needed through new facilities or infrastructure projects like buildings or requested renovations.
Okay, so I understand recently the Student Fee Board created a strategic planning committee. Could you explain a little bit about what that is and why it was created?
Yeah, so the conversation surrounding bringing aboard strategic planning as part of our operations and internal processes came about when we discovered, following the university's announcement that they were moving into a 2-year budget cycle, that the money that we decided that we were appropriating over the next 2 years would not be sufficient to be able to afford what we have committed to spending. So we are essentially taking in less than we are giving in terms of revenue for the units and services that we fund. And that was a result of really structural flaws that existed within the entity that we have since began to try to resolve. The budgetary issues that resulted from that were due to a lack of policies, good governance practices. We just haven't done a thorough review since the founding of the University Park Fee Board in 2017. So as we started to discover the implications of our budgetary issues, and as we were required to, of course, pull from our reserves to be able to cushion the amount that we were facing in terms of a deficit, we decided that it would be best to completely look at the structure of the University Park Fee Board, its handbook and internal operating guidelines, to really see how, one, we can create a budget that's sustainable for students, not only in the present, but in the future, but also to ensure that the University Park Fee Board operates efficiently and in line with the student needs and the importance of providing for those students that we serve. So by recreating the organization and restructuring it, we're hoping that there will be more robust reviews, analyses, and the prevention of potential budgetary shortfalls in the future.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot more accountability now.
Yes, that's another really good point. We did not have any systems in place to be able to really calculate or document all of these projects and services that we were funding and receiving. And of course, the amount of money that we have been appropriating has increased, obviously due to the need that Student Affairs has. So a lot of these implications, we did not have the adequate tools to address the situation or to really realize what the budget was and what it now looks like. And now we're taking active steps to, one, ensure that we are making the University Park Fee Board more accessible to students through a new strategic communications process, hiring student staff to help support the functions of the University Park Fee Board because it's comprised of 12 voting members, UPUA and GPSA representation part of that. And all of this together really is an effort to ensure that there is greater accountability and understanding of where money is going and how it's supporting students in the best way that it can.
Now, I have to ask you because, like you said, the Student Fee Board determines so much, including campus recreation, which I actually just learned. That's very interesting. But in terms of this revenue deficit, do you think students, should they be worried about that? Is it being taken care of? I understand that Penn State itself is in a budget deficit. So obviously we have to think long term, but what should students be thinking?
Yeah, so I really appreciate that question. I think that we are at a place within that strategic planning committee process where we are going through, reviewing, and ultimately voting on the recommendations to be adopted. I think building off of that, one thing that we've seen is that this new budget model that has been produced through this strategic planning committee process is a way to, of course, balance strategic budget reductions that we do need to undertake, but also being cognizant of strategic student-initiated fee increases that we will still have to accommodate. And we do have a very comfortable number within our reserves that will allow us to taper any serious cuts that might affect students. So we have no concerns regarding that, but we are, of course, creating more mechanisms for analyzing risk and ensuring that our expenditures are going where they need to be going. And we, of course, have plans within this budget model over the next few years to raise the student-initiated fee to supplement a lot of the critical services that will need that student-initiated fee support. Which I think will be another helpful factor to make sure that students aren't affected by any of these budgetary challenges that the university and the UPFB might be facing.
All right, well, I think that's all the questions we have, but is there anything else you want to mention?
I would just say the University Park Fee Board applications will be coming out around March or April, and we really want to keep people alert of how to get involved, especially as the university undergoes these budgetary challenges. It's more important now than ever to be able to have students participate in this process to really make sure that their monies are going to where they need it to go to support all students. So I would just keep that out there and hope that students stay informed and updated on what happens with their fees.
Awesome. Well, Najee, on behalf of both of us and the Collegian, thank you so much for sitting down and talking through this with us. I think that students really need to know more about their student fees and the process that kind of determines them and reviews how that money is kind of calculated and then divided up through all the different categories that you mentioned. Well, that is all that we have for this week, but please be sure to join us for our next episode on this week's resolution. Erin, do you want to do the honors? Plug the Collegian?
Yes, if you want to check out any other Collegian content, you can go to psucollegian.com.